think we're good.
Okay. Montana, if you want to go ahead and kind of drive because you're putting together the website and so forth, you go ahead and drive the conversation, and then let's also do the survey stuff that we talked about.
Absolutely. I think what we'd love to hear from you, Sheldon, is a little bit about you and how you have employed our product. So would love to know your title and some of the use cases you may have applied our product to. So if you don't mind giving us just a brief intro into your experience with our product, I think that's what we'd love to hear.
Sure. So I am a professor in computer science, but I've also been a professor in film and television production. And so that's, the both areas, the entertainment as well as the computational. And my main interest, I did something unusual, which is I was a full professor in teaching and doing research and making films in Georgia, and I became interested in the possibilities of creating autonomous performance for animated characters in video games. That was my main purpose, right? And I had some time. I was already a full professor. I was pretty young as a full professor, so I could take a break from doing research and making movies. And I got a PhD just because the coursework that I needed to do in order to do this was pretty substantial. And I just figured, well, I could do this. I didn't have children at the time, and it was free, right? I was at a big university where I could do that. So they accepted my idea, and I took about 8 years to do this, and it was pretty ambitious. And eventually I got it done. And so really my research is also a dissertation, which is publicly available if you're interested. The university is Georgia State University in Atlanta, but I can send it to you if you're interested. So what I did is I proposed the idea that if you could use a system, a neural network system that could categorize and measure emotions in a systematic way, then you could take those measurements and and let's assume then that you could work with an actor who could behave in a directed way over time and with a structured type of, I call it a behavioral tree or a dialogue tree or a behavioral dialogue tree, that you could capture a variety of behaviors within a scenario, a fictional scenario. So, for example, if we have a common starting point and a common ending point of a scene, but we know that there's like multiple pathways to get you there, and actors are trained in improv to know how to deal with those pathways, that you could break that up with dialogue into very predictable paths and links to those paths, or we call them edges, right? So you end up with a graph, essentially. And that each of those links or legs of a graph to each point, you think of any exchange of dialogue as kind of like a node in a graph, that you could then capture all of that and then use the MoodMe software to, or any of the various types of software that do the same thing. So, but MoodMe being one of them, that you could then build and take that data and then build a neural network. If you had enough takes of the same performance of each of those legs of that whole scene that's built in a graph, that you could take each one of them and create a neural network that would then drive a character that was modeled in three dimensions after the actor. So I can then take the actor who performed it and I can do a photogrammetric scan of their face. So I just worked from here up, right? And then from there, I could direct that 3D animated character like I was directing the actor. And my goal is not to steal from the actor. No. My goal is to create a body of the neural network is something that I believe the actor should own as their property. That it's not necessarily for the video, but that as you build in collaboration with that actor, or if that becomes their property in a way that could have more longevity over time, because they created that character, and it could be co-owned. But essentially, we're not actually capturing the emotional intelligence of the actor. We're capturing the emotional intelligence of the character that they created, because the actor is way more complicated than we could ever capture in like, 500 little segments of a scene, right? But they're creating a character for that context. And then the animated character can be directed, by animators or by animation directors to behave appropriately within a game scenario. So within a video game, we know that a player can do stuff, and some of the characters that are close to the player will react to what the player does, right? And those are very predictable things. If you play any video game, every video game designer designs situations where the player interacts with other characters to achieve certain goals in order to play the game. And if we're talking about, character-driven games, then we can predict more or less the beginning and the end, or maybe one of multiple endings, but all the pathways that take you to the end. And then we could apply that knowledge, that neural network knowledge, to the character. And so then now we have an autonomous animated character. And when I first did this, people thought I was totally, I first had this idea for a dissertation proposal. I thought I was like, he's what drug is he on, right? But some mathematicians were like, he can do this, it's possible, right? There was a few in the math department who were supportive, and then eventually now I talk like this, and everybody's like, no kidding, like it's obvious, right? So there's no surprise anymore. So, there's my best description.
That's very cool. And you were able to utilize our technology to do that, or was it more of a, oh, that's very cool. And what specifically was that?
So I used two different technologies. So because I did a dissertation, so I found the technology of MoodMe to be the most useful for embedding my neural network in the game itself, because it's got a Unity plugin. Because I had to make a dissertation, I would have used it completely. The problem was that you want to pass your dissertation, right? And there's another company that had been reviewed more by other academics than MoodMe, and their interface was fitting to the existing cognitive science and psychological, what they call computational psychology profile. So strictly on an academic level, MoodMe didn't have as much that I could draw from to say, look, because I say I didn't build the system. I didn't build the MoodMe system. I didn't build the sensing, the emotion sensing system, and that would be a flaw if I can't support academically what made it possible to do that. So this other company, Noldus, is what I used to do the actor capture, but they don't have a plugin for Unity, so too bad for them, right? And MoodMe does. So I would have happily done. It would have been actually a lot easier for me and cheaper, because the Noldus product was expensive. Giving me an academic license to do research was a lot of money, because it's like 5-digit number normally commercially, and that was very painful. I didn't have to pay for all of that, but still it was a lot. And so I did have to use them just strictly from an academic standpoint, because I needed to say, look, here are two papers where colleagues in other institutions in 2 continents had compared it against 9 other emotion recognition systems. And this is where they ranked, this is where they fell. You can judge them. But I couldn't do that with MoodMe, because I couldn't find a paper that supported MoodMe's precision and accuracy, right?
Of course.
I would love to see that paper written. That's not what I don't do those kind of tests.
Totally.
But it worked very well in Unity. So, and I'm a real big advocate for using it in Unity. Yes.
How easy would you say it was to integrate it?
I mean, very easy. I mean, if you can, I mean, I could do everything I wanted to do. It was a matter of simply plugging it in and installing it, and then writing the C# code to move the data from point A to point B, to write the file. I mean, if you can write C# and you can make Unity classes in Unity and know how to export, I mean, for any programmer who knows how to write C# and work in Unity, it was extremely easy. I guess I said I could have done everything in MoodMe. It's just I had to work with something that had that system. Yeah. So I liked it a lot, and
that's so cool. Very cool. How familiar had you been with MoodMe? Did you have expectations going in? Were you pretty familiar with the idea of it?
so, like almost everything in this field, you start looking on the internet, right? I mean, that's the first place you go. So then I did that, and I knew I was going to be investing a big chunk of time, so I was very careful about what I was going to make. I didn't have a company backing me; it was just me, and whether or not I could get a dissertation done. And realize, my passion, my interest was to make this thing happen, but also to eventually maybe participate more directly in game development, as opposed to just as a theorist or as an outsider. And so my research had been with just comparing everything I could, downloading all kinds of free things. There was a competitor that disappeared. You probably know about them. They're what were they called? In the East Coast, in Boston. They got out of the Unity plugin game. I forgot their name right now, but they were actually more. They were ahead of. They appeared to be. I mean, I don't know what they actually were ahead, but just from the release product. If you remember their name, great. But if you don't, it's okay. They're based in Boston, that area, kind of circles of people in MIT, and their name's escaping me anyway. But I had used their plugin for a little while in 2017, 2018 as testing it, and that was fine. But it did not have it was really kind of more for like goofy cartoons. It really didn't have a lot of precision. The level of, like, you couldn't easily mix emotions to make subtlety. It was like one extreme or the other, right? And that was probably what was they thought they needed in order to just get it sold, and what we understood about neural networks at the time, and even about cognitive psychology and the science of emotion, autonomous emotions, right? We know a lot more now. But both, what I can clearly see is, both products cared a lot about what research had happened before, but clearly MoodMe had the greater interest long term, and the other company got out of the business and put their focus much more on well, let's see, what were the other applications? More on like autonomous truck drivers, who would have to be getting alerted if they're getting sleepy. That whole part of emotion, more for like labor analysis kind of stuff. And they were not as interested in entertainment. And what attracted about MoodMe was clear, even in their marketing, was that they were interested in entertainment and marketing and the fashion industry. This area is closer to what we need for actors, and so I think there's always been a more openness in that respect.
Very cool. And now I have to ask, I hate to do it, I have to ask, did you encounter any performance issues when you were using the SDK, or was it pretty smooth sailing, slow response times, anything like that?
The only issue I had, I didn't have any performance issues at all. The only issue that I had was Unity does a lot of has had a lot of updates, and like any big company, that have many stakeholders and competing interests, nobody seems to always know whenever there's an update whether their plugins are going to survive correctly. And so I would update, and then I would have a problem, right? And so then I would have to downgrade, and so sometimes there was a I had to make some, what do you call it, sort of compromises between whether I could take advantage of one thing that I wanted to do with Unity with another interest and not lose the functionality of the plugin. And so, like every company who makes plugins, you're always trying to get information from the company that you're plugging into. That information is not always forthcoming, and therefore the plugin might be a little bit behind by a version or two. But this is how every plugin works, right? So there were a couple times where I did implement it, and then what I had done in the last version didn't work, so I had to work backwards. Yeah, but I want to see the game industry do much more with this. So in other words, to
Oh.
use the face as an input. We're used to, this is an input, right?
Mhm.
But the face is an input, and with the camera, obviously. And so that's where I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we see the potential as much as you do, so it's exciting to see that you really see the industry moving that way, especially with your background. I guess kind of last question for you. Were there any features you would have liked to see? Anything you felt like maybe we could have built out a little bit stronger?
Or maybe just that I'd like to see because because I'm a developer, I know having high expectations for something that's so in its infancy is kind of silly. But I think that there is one thing that would be important. Maybe a couple things. So here's what I would put on my list of to-dos, right? So there is a very good sort of dashboard concept that can be taken from computational psychology. So, and the company Noldus and a couple other companies have actually done it, where you have what's called a circumflex, which is a circle, right? And on this axis here, which is horizontal, you have you usually have two extreme opposites of emotional intensity or emotional type, right? So usually it's pleasure and displeasure, right? And on top, it's valence, like how much pleasure or how much displeasure. So the y-axis being a lot of displeasure or a lot of pleasure, right? And then on one side, it's like, ooh, this is awful, I'm so unpleasant. And on the other side, it's like, wow, this is wonderful, right? So you can imagine, somewhere in there are a lot of emotions in a circumplex. This was the work of Russell. The idea goes back to the 80s, this measuring it this way. And then all the emotions are really, in truth, in language, like human language, all those emotional labels are a little different from one culture to the other, right? So one of the things that I would love to see is the ability to map an emotion in that circumplex, which is a standard way of working between valence and pleasure, displeasure, so that like for example, in a place like in some of the Asian cultures, not all, everyone's a little different, right? The facial expressions that represent an emotion, they vary and they have different concepts and labels, right? And you find that in those different distinctions in Eastern Europe, and then as you go to the Southern Europe, all the labels and namings and where they fall within that circumplex is different, right? So as a person who is, if you think of as a developer designer of this, sort of like a director of a play, right? If I'm directing a play like Macbeth or whatever, in a place like Eastern Europe or Hungary, where emotions are, like language is very long, it takes a lot longer to say stuff. So the face does all this kind of suspension of expression, as opposed to Italy, where things can be said very fast and very short and a lot of emotion in a very small amount of time. So those calibrations need an interface where we can connect labels, emotion label words in a custom way. I know we have the 6 basic ones, but we got to go a little deeper. I think as the science gets more, more developed, and we have to have them see that there's a relationship between those words and the cultures and the contexts that they're measured in. Because I know the fundamentals have to have a set of common words, and I know that MoodMe uses the big database as their training from the Netherlands, right? It's one of the companies that uses that. And that's a great training database because the Netherlands is so diverse. It has people from every part of the world. It's like the perfect database to work from because you get African and Asian and European and all different parts of Europe. So it's a very good database. But still, we need to then take from that basis, we need to modify and shape so that circumflex can be, the little slices of the pie can have different names and labels. And then if we kind of apply them in a neural network to a character or to some other measuring system, either as an output or an input, then they can be more culturally specific or more application specific. That's my main thing, right? even to have like a circumplex with the valence and the pleasure displeasure, like one of the things that Noldus does is you actually can have real-time view of of the little dot, that actually moves in real time over a course of a video clip. So you can actually watch a video clip and watch a dot move around in the circumplex, and then have like percentages, like how often was it in the happy zone, how often was it in the sad zone. And I know that the same data exists in MoodMe, but then to have it visually is really kind of cool. And then to be able to, now this is the part I'd love to see, to be able to tweak and relabel those little regions so that it was culturally specific would be rock solid awesome, right?
That's so cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think that was hugely enlightening for me, especially.
Sure.
That's really, really cool. Thank you so much for the feedback. I'm gonna kind of pass the mic to Tanja. Any questions? I think that was so thorough and so wonderful. So thank you. Tanja, anything I missed, anything we can elaborate on?
No, as you said, I think this was very thorough, and yeah, really, really good ideas for some of the future enhancements. We actually were thinking those same things. We were talking about that. So no, I think this is really good. As I mentioned before, what we will do is we'll draft up a testimonial and share it with you and say, what do you think about this? Do you want to change it at all? And then, pending your approval, we'll have something like that on our website, which we very, very much thank you for.
So
Sure.
much.
I would love to participate. And because so I'm currently a professor and working at Occidental College, and one of the cool things about Oxy is that it does have a good theater, film, media program, and it has a pretty good computer science. So if you needed to have like and it's the thing is it's actually a residential campus, so you don't have to go very far to get people, but it's very small, and people who go there are very committed. So it's like 2,000 people, but they're, and I live really close. So I'm here in LA, so I just, I can ride my bike there. So anyway, I have a space that is big enough to make a little laboratory space. So if you wanted to set up a product testing environment for something that could be useful for entertainment, and I'm especially thinking of like this one problem that we all know about, which is I don't know if you guys followed, the actors strike, and
Oh yeah,
we're reading
yep.
about the AI stuff.
Absolutely.
And so I think it was very underinformed. That's my biggest complaint. I think the concerns were good, but nobody read any research paper or arguing one way or the other. It was just a fear. It was completely driven by fear. And what I think actors and even their agents are not getting the idea is that you can create an AI of an actor's character, in a neural network that can be licensed by the actor, and they can own the actor and they can own that thing. And they don't even need a studio to produce it. They could just set it up in their own house. You can follow my regimen to do it, or somebody else's, but I guarantee you it's not going to be that different. They could be creating their own neural networks and licensing them out to either visual effects companies and agents would just have a whole other product to sell, So I would say
that's a big deal. My two daughters are creatives. They're artists, and they're passionate about the whole writers and actors thing and the risk to their intellectual property. You have some very, very, very good points there. I actually used to live in California. I know Occidental College very well. I know that whole area, so that's very cool.
Yeah. I'm very proud to be there. I hope to keep going. But I would love to be helpful in solving this and putting that product like that out, and even making some interesting media, product that could be developed. And I have really smart students. I have very, very diligent people who have colleagues in animation who could be interested. So all this is possible. Please, I'm actually in a great position because I used to be in a research position, but now I'm in more of a teaching and consulting position, right? So that means I can actually spend an entire summer doing just this, right? And not worrying about whether it's a research paper, but it could be a video game or some other visual effects film that is of that same nature. So if we were to collaborate, schedule it, I mean, I have cameras, I have lights, I have people, and it's really close. I mean, it could be a great project that could then launch a product and then launch more creativity. And
Ooh.
there's so many things that could make this
Yeah,
good for
yeah,
everybody,
absolutely. The creative wheels are turning.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna say the gears are going.
I'm like, can you see the smoke going?
Right. I mean, I could, it's even possible to create a course in summer where we did it on site,
Yeah.
and probably the students who are in both computer science and
Yeah.
film and theater would be willing to stay for, like, it's always a
Yeah.
little bit expensive
Yeah, yeah.
to do it during the summer, but because it's so innovative, right? So,
Yes.
there's a way to make that happen if enough people. It just takes, like, basically it takes 9 to 15 people and you have a class.
Yeah.
And so, and truth be told, that all the students are very good. They're either sponsored by very good scholarships or they have very wealthy parents.
Yeah.
So it's one of the two. So getting those people are probably not it's not that difficult if the project looks interesting. So
Very cool. Very, very cool.
okay.
Very, yeah.
All right.
Well, again, thank you so much. We totally appreciate it. And yeah, we'll think about this, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you.
Great.
soon.
All right.
I could see it now. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of
Lovely.
the day and evening. And Montana, if there's anything else on your side.
No, but thank you again, and
Yeah.
so nice to meet you. And we absolutely will be in touch to follow up.
One quick question. So where are both of you now? I'm just always curious.
I'm in
actually
New York, Long Island.
I'm
Okay.
in Boston, but a new
Okay.
transfer out of New York.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So then you probably may have heard of that other company. I can't remember the name of it, but
I was just trying to think of who it could have been. I'll give it a little Google after this.
I'll send you something if I find it. And do I have your email somewhere? Both of yours?
It should be on the invite, definitely.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So got it. And Montana is you're with the background that is just a little plant, right?
I know I've got my little, I've
Okay.
lost sunlight for the day. So I'm sitting in my hidey hole office with my little plant and my mirror over here.
Okay. And then tell me your name again in Long Island, just so I remember.
Tanja.
Tanja, Montana.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I got it. Yes. Okay, perfect. All right.
Lovely.
Thank you
Thank
so much. Have a wonderful evening.
My pleasure. You take care. Be well.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
you too. Bye-bye.
Mhm.